Yeah, so
You know where
yeah.
it's like it opens and like.
Do like Bruce Willis and just sit at the top.
Yeah, the action. I think I'm.
We got a call. Bay. I think that's right. That's all we've ever called on these.
3388633.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Let's
They're
see.
gonna have to participate remotely.
Yeah,
We'll
it's,
just have to do that.
Hello.
Hi, Miss Powers, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you, hon?
Good, good. We are getting ready to start in just about 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
participate.
I'll second that motion.
All right. And Ms. Belcher, will you pull the board?
Mr. Kevin Althauser,
Yes.
Mr. Darren Gilroy,
Yes.
Mr. Walter Marston,
Yes.
Ms. Jane Powers,
So her
Yes.
vote, her vote doesn't get
Oh.
recorded.
sorry,
Yeah.
Mr. Trace Phillips.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
now-
Then will you poll for the previous motion? I'm sorry.
Mr. Kevin Althauser,
Yes.
Mr. Darren Gilroy,
Yes.
Mr. Walter Marston,
Yes.
Ms. Jane Powers,
Yes.
Mr. Trace Phillips.
Yes. All right. Move on to 3.1, School Board Appreciation Month.
February is School Board Appreciation Month, and so tonight we wish to recognize our elected school board members for the service that they provide to our school division. They represent their constituents and work to make the best decisions they can for our staff and our students. So, Ms. Belcher, if you will help me here. You're fine. I'll get one. Okay, so, we have a certificate of appreciation to Mr. Kevin Althauser.
Thank you.
And here is a mug for you.
How to spell my name? All right.
Yeah, Miss Frazier, our high school art teacher, actually personalized these
Very nice.
for the board.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Have Mr. Trace Bell sign.
Thank you.
Have Mr. Walter Marston.
Thank you.
Have Mr. Darren Gilroy. And Ms. Powers, I have your cup and your certificate of recognition that we will get to you.
Thank you very much.
And I also have a certificate for Ms. Randall Taylor, who is our school board student representative, and in appreciation for you giving up your time, your precious evening time, to participate with us. So thank you, Randall.
Thank you.
If we give everybody a thank you. Also, the week of February 13th to the 17th, which was last week, is our VSBA School Board Clerk Appreciation Week. So, Ms. Belcher, we'd like to present this to you in appreciation for your hard work. And here is a card from me and the school board members. Thank you for all you do. Last week, Governor Youngkin declared February 15th as School Resource Officer Appreciation. So at this time, I would like for Jesse Crowder and for Jeremy Nichols to come forward, because Jeremy started with us and is now passed the torch over to Mr. Crowder.
It's Jesse's now.
Yes. But of course, we're still working very closely. Whoops.
Okay. Thank you.
So we just appreciate all that you guys are doing, and we're just happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. You got room for that in one of those pockets, Jesse? You got room for that in one of those pockets over there?
Maybe.
He's gonna fold it up.
Thank you, Ms. Warwick. And we'll move on to 4.1 and open the public hearing for the school budget.
Yes. And of course, this will be a time for anyone that wants to speak on the budget to come forward. We did not get numbers until late Thursday afternoon. I'm not sure if everyone was aware, but there was an error in the Virginia Department of Education's calculation tool, and they had to work on correcting that error. The error is about a $35,000 reduction in our budget for this school year. And then since it's a 2-year budget, it's about an 85% reduction in next school year. We don't know yet. We are hoping the superintendents are working with the state superintendent to try to hold us harmless for that loss in this school year, because that's what we were told we would get. But not sure exactly what's going to happen going forward. So, Ms. Duncan, we had been working on budgets, but we had to stop and wait for the new tool to come out, which we got last Thursday evening. So what I have tonight is just very, very preliminary. And I will go through that presentation, but tonight it's a chance to hear the public just for what their priorities are. Again, I don't have solid numbers. Everything I have right now is estimates. And of course, we'll be working on this very heavily throughout the next few weeks. If there's anybody, I guess, that wants to come speak on budget priorities.
Yep, feel free to come up or stay where you are if you want to. It's not a very big room. Nope. All right.
So we've got I'm sorry, the arrangement of this room, the screen is behind you. So I apologize for that. Hang on, I'm getting everything pulled up on my computer. So the first part is just the overview of the budget process, and those of you that have been here every year during budget season, this is a process that we go through. And all of it supports that final gear, which is our comprehensive plan that we have to approve every 6 years. Budget development, obviously a budget is a financial outline of our division's education program and the means of managing expenditures. And we have to be very intentional in our budget. As you all know, Craig County, with having over 51% national forest, we do not have sales tax revenue like many other divisions, and our budget is just very, very tight. And we're going to talk a little bit more about those things later, but all school boards have to be very intentional, but here with our budget constraints, we have to be extremely intentional. And of course, it's required by the Code of Virginia. The Board of Supervisors have to adopt the ordinance, and obviously we cannot legally spend more than we appropriated and cannot legally spend more than revenue received. So Ms. Duncan and I both would be in very big trouble if that happens. So we are diligent to ensure that that does not happen. Thank you. And so this is just an overall budget development calendar, and it just gives you kind of an overall picture of the process. And you can see over on the top right is the preparation. We have the work session, we have public hearings. Then in March, we'll have a joint work session with the Board of Supervisors. So those dates are there for anyone in the public that wants to come to any of these to give input, especially on the joint work session with the Board of Supervisors, because they are the ones who ultimately hand us our budget. And then adoption will be April 11th, and then May would be the adoption by the Board of Supervisors. So commonly asked, next slide. Thank you. Is how do we get our money? You know, we have three sources. We have local funding, which is what the Board of Supervisors gives us. We have our state revenues, which is the governor's ultimate budget that he signs. And then we have federal programs. Those are the three sources of revenue. And the state uses the local composite index, which is the ability of a locality to pay for the education in the county. And then our enrollment as of March 31st. So that's how we get our state funding. So the local composite index is it's based on Department of Taxation, the Weldon Cooper Center at UVA. They do our local population estimates, and then the average daily membership, which I just mentioned. And so you can see historically, our local composite index has increased, and for this biennium 22-24, it's 0.3362, which means they say that that is what the county must fund for required programs, but they are some optional programs that the county does not have to fund. And we'll talk about that as we go along. The next slide really shows our decline in fall membership enrollment. Starting in 2012, you can just see the steady decline of enrollment, which is the number of students that are here in the fall, actually present and enrolled. And this is a trend not unique to Craig County. This is a trend that's happening everywhere, all of our surrounding divisions. The big difference is that some of the bigger divisions, they accept out of county students and they charge tuition. So they can make up for some of their enrollment fees by charging tuition. So this definitely plays into how we're funded. So briefly, what we know now, and we're going with the governor's budget. There's three versions. There's the governor's, the Senate, and the House. So ultimately, the governor has to decide what the final budget's going to look like. So we're doing the governor's right now, and then we will have to adjust it. The compensation supplement. This is optional and requires a local match. So that means the local match means local dollars must match it. And what's in there is a 5% salary increase for SOQ funded instructional and support positions. And we may receive a prorated payment if a minimum local increase of 2.5% is provided each year. So we're not sure yet if they're going to allow us to use part of our raises for last year. But again, if we don't get the funding, the compensation package is could be off the table. VRS rates, that's our retirement system, that has not changed. But now, of course, if our salaries increase, then the rates will increase according to that salary increase. So at-risk money, and this supports approved programs for students who are educationally at risk. And this is the optional match. We have to take all of the funding or we get none of it. So the county would have to match $108,884 to receive the $323,000 total allocation. But again, it cannot be prorated. So if we don't have the matching funds, that's out of our budget. Early reading intervention, that is a required local match, so that is something that we get. Re-benchmarking hold harmless, that's also a required local match. And then the grocery tax hold harmless, and there's no match for that. So here is a breakdown of the governor's proposed budget, and notice that that red says projected, because right now this is all a projection and it's our best estimate at this point in time until we receive more information. So that's the revenue, and you can see the breakdown of state, local, and if you look under local, this is $78,269 over, I say the normal allocation, over what they have been giving us in the past. which is kind of exactly where we were last year, almost the exact same dollars. Federal, and then other sources of income. So these are estimated expenses. So there's the breakdown of salaries and benefits, operating expenditures, and $20,000 in contingency, which is a fund for any emergencies that may arise. So you'll notice that 86% is salaries and benefits. 86% of our total budget is based on staff. It's people. So I wanted to just give a little overview because sometimes it's like, well, don't you get funding for all your staff members? Don't you get funding for every special ed teacher? For every assistant? We do not. So I wanted to just kind of let you know, if you look at the elementary classroom, these are classroom teachers, elementary classroom teachers. Currently 15.5. We get funded 13.38 positions, and that's because they don't fully fund us. Like they fund us 1.87 positions in first grade. Well, we have to have 2. I mean, that's where your percentages there are a little bit different. And we have 1 federally funded position that's funded from Title I. And so 2.12 positions in the elementary, and these are teachers, staff, instructional staff. We locally fund 2.12 positions. Craig County High School classroom teachers. Current number is 23. We're funded 17.84. There are no federally funded positions, so we're locally funding 3.66 positions. Instructional assistants. We currently have 21 in the division. We are funded 0.94, not even 1 full position. 3 are funded at McCleary with Title I funds. So 17 instructional assistant positions are locally funded in our budget.
Where's the CCHS classroom teachers?
Yes.
17.84 state funded, 3.66 local. We're missing like 1 or 2 there.
Yeah.
That doesn't add up to 23. Where's that?
And they got 21.
So it's roughly, I guess, 4, correct, Heather? Hang on.
It's 5.16.
It's locally funded?
I'm sorry, 5.16. Let me make that correction. I apologize for that.
No worries.
Heather and I have been crunching numbers. I'm surprised that my eyes are even. Yes, thank you. So the instructional assistants I wanted to point out because, I mean, we've gotten requests. When I got staff requests, there are lots of requests for more instructional assistants in classrooms. But you see where we are with that funding. So the next slide is, I just wanted to point out some highlights of some partially funded positions. It's important to note. School-based clerical staff, that's office staff. Bookkeeper, secretaries. We're funded 1.88 and we have 4. So obviously anything over that is locally funded. Elementary guidance, it's 0.64. But we don't need 0.64 of Mr. Persinger, we need a 1.0 of Mr. Persinger. So obviously that's 1. Same thing, secondary guidance, it's 0.86, that's closer to 1. Our ITRT, Instructional Technology Resource Teacher, we're only funded for the entire division half a position, and we fund 1 whole. We get no funding for the assistant principal position at the high school. That's 100% locally funded. And then other support staff is 9.61, and we have 29 positions. That includes your bus drivers, your car drivers, all of the support positions that you have. The central office positions, financial, payroll, school nurse is part of that. So just to try to bring some awareness that, frankly, we're underfunded with staffing from the state, but there's not a lot that any of us can do about that, except continue to lobby. So the next few slides, I'm not going to obviously read to you, but it's there. It is on board docs for anybody that wants to access it later, but it just kind of has a breakdown of what's included in the instructional budget. So basically, it's anybody related to instruction, and then teacher salaries, counselors, media specialists, gifted specialists, and our coaching stipend, and also all the instructional materials and supplies. Administration, that is the superintendent, assistant superintendent, board clerk, finance specialist, deputy board clerk, school nurse, speech pathologist, materials and supplies, and just general teacher licensure, onboarding, audits are included in administration. So that doesn't include just administrators, it's many other positions. Pupil transportation, you can see what's listed there. It's our bus drivers, our car drivers, our mechanic, fuel, repairs, insurance, operations and maintenance. We've got the other half of Mr. Gill's there, our custodians, and then we have electricity, our insurance, and general expenses, which this year we do have the contracted cleaning service due to the fact that we were unable to hire to fully staff our custodian. And then there's your technology. And this just lists the federal funds. Those are the sources of federal funding. And again, just a note, we forest reserve funds, that's never guaranteed to us from year to year. So we do not include that in our budget. When it comes in, we have to see where that money is needed and put that where it's needed. But we do not, because it's ranged from what, Heather, 14,000 one year to 150,000. We just never know. So we just can't budget that. So what are the unknowns? Obviously, like I said, revenue and expenditures. We have yet to get our quote from Local Choice, which is our insurance group. We have been meeting with Jefferson Health Plan, which is a state-approved program. And we're exploring, we met with them this afternoon, and what we're going to do is explore some more affordable options without any decrease in benefits. So I want to just say right now, we're not changing anything. So I don't want anybody to get worried. But we do feel like we need to explore a possibility to see if we can have more control over the rising insurance cost. And to obtain a quote, participating employees, which means participating means those that participate in our health insurance, they will be asked to complete a confidential survey provided by Jefferson Health Plan. It's through their private portal. We don't know which individuals say what. It's for them to be able to provide a quote. And it's not shared with the school division. Nothing individually will be shared, but they have to know kind of what the liabilities are. And in some of the smaller school divisions that have gone with this BPA program, they have been able, with their savings, to have employee-only options free, where employee would have free health insurance. and then they could add on, their family if they wanted to. So we are only in an exploration phase right now because it keeps going up and local choice won't give us a quote early enough to be able to see what our budget is. So that's just an exploration phase that we're going to just see if there might be a possibility to have some savings for our employees. So, any questions? And for the school board, what do you feel you would like your priorities to be?
What was the total reduction in budget from last year compared to this year? It looked like it's a significant amount. Was it?
We had over $1 million, well.
I mean, I was
we're
just
in
looking
an
at
odd
last
place this year because the school board budget was actually approved last year before we got final numbers. So there was an additional $1 million that they gave us for construction money, but that's not in that budget. So we're gonna.
That
have
was
to come
1
back.
year only,
Right,
correct?
1
The
year only, but
construction.
we can carry it over. So, that money is our money. Whatever we spend this year, whatever's left, the county will reappropriate it to us next year. So that's.
But that's right now part of our project.
Right, it's part of
our
our
HVAC
project.
project, so
We've
that's
already
not
done it,
anything-
obligated and
yes.
everything.
Yeah.
And like we said, right now, we don't know what the revenue numbers are gonna end up being. So this is just, the different versions have different numbers. So we're waiting to see, but
The governor's is the most conservative.
yes.
If it ends up being the governor's, do we know what the loss would be with the governor's budget? Theoretically, that would be the highest loss, right?
It would be, and I'm not sure about that.
I was just looking at last year's proposed
Yeah.
budget compared to this year's, and it
I think we're at
was $1.4 million.
But that included the $1 million,
I
right?
don't think it
No.
did. I'm gonna have to, I don't
It
want
ain't
to tell
showing
you
the
wrong. I'm
million
gonna
on
go
there.
back and check on there. I don't think it did include $1 million.
I think it was that.
So
Okay.
it's even more.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions on the budget? We'll move on to citizens and delegations. Did we have anybody?
Yes, sir. Ms. Donna Plankton?
Do we need to motion to close?
Is that,
Close the public hearing?
I don't think we need a motion to
Okay.
close it,
Then-
right? I don't think
I
so.
don't think so. Okay. Come on up, Mr. Places.
Good evening. My name is Donna DePlaces, and I am a resident of Craig County, and this is year 23 of me teaching at the high school. So thank you for your time, but I just would like to get a few things off my chest that have really been stressing me out this year. So as a teacher over the past few years, I haven't often been asked to remember my why. So I'm taking this moment to ask that of you. My why prioritizes the students of Craig County High School and their education at all costs. This has become increasingly difficult since I feel that this varies with the current priorities of both the school board and administration. Based on what I've seen in this past year, this school year, here's a list of what has been a priority. Number 1 is favoritism. There are clear favorites within the student body, the faculty and staff, administration, and even between athletic teams and clubs. Number 2, lack of policy enforcement. There have been numerous times throughout the year that policies aren't followed, are unexpectedly changed, or created on the spot. This includes discipline policies, athletic policies, and even employee policies. Number 3, the emphasis on athletics over academics. And I'm sorry I have to say this, but there has been more than enough drama about coaches this past school year. Can we please focus that our division is in warning? No accountability. The number of times the bathrooms have been vandalized or students have been caught vaping or smoking is ridiculous. The amount of time students have been disrespectful or inappropriate to faculty and staff members is also unacceptable. Until these conduct violations are properly addressed, the number of incidents will continue to rise. Number 5, low morale. The teaching assignments, words, and actions of both the board and administration have done more this year to alienate faculty and staff members than unite us in a common goal. How much more employee turnover can we survive? There's a big difference between hearing, listening, and then addressing employee concerns. And number 6, lack of communication. Why are there so many changes? I am tired of retracting statements that I have made to students and parents based on what I know. Can we please think things through before making announcements? All of these things impact my classroom on a daily basis. Classroom management is a joke, even for veteran teachers, because of the lack of discipline. If they're not disciplined for stuff they do outside of my classroom, why are they going to be disciplined for what they do inside my classroom? All I want to do is teach math. Can someone please help me do that? Thank you.
Where did we get on the letting teachers issue ASD? I know that was supposed to be being worked on, whatever came out of that.
My understanding was it was being done. I would have to ask Ms. DePlaces. And Ms. Stanley had surgery, so she's not here, but.
Well, I'll tell you what the students tell me. It doesn't matter, they're not going to serve it, and nobody's going to make them. Their parents don't care if they come or not.
Well, and they are serving it.
Some, but not the ones who really need to.
What, do you have any idea or any ideas that might help the situation? I mean, I don't know any, is it following through if they don't serve like after school detention? I mean, I believe the teachers need to have that enforcement just because that's one thing they have. But if we're not enforcing after school detention, then
We
that
were
needs to be
told
taken care
that
of.
we couldn't assign that we could recommend it to administration, but we weren't allowed to assign it. That was what I was told last.
I know that, and I can speak to this that I do know, that I think it's recommended, and I believe it's following through. If it's not, I will check in on that. But there's only a certain number of students we can have. So they have to let the student know what day they're going to serve. So teachers can't just tell them which day because there's
Administration
a
has to
roster.
schedule it.
But, you know, I can definitely follow up because my understanding.
But they can give detention.
Yes.
They
Yes.
don't have to refer it to.
That's not,
administration.
that was what I communicated. And if that's not happening, then I will
Yeah, it needs to
look
be.
into that. I just know the part was they can't just go ahead and assign the day.
Yeah, administration and scheduling, I think, is fine, but.
But I think that y'all need the authority to assign after-school detention. I mean, that's what after-school detention is. That's the teachers. And if the teachers, you know, if you have a teacher going overboard with it or whatever, that's a different thing. But I mean, y'all need help. I mean, if y'all are getting cussed out in the classroom, that's unacceptable. I mean, and I've heard it multiple times.
And I agree with you. I sent home that letter about ASD and Saturday school and Randall, do you have anything as a student rep that you want to share about what you've heard? Or about these questions about discipline and?
Yeah, I do feel that the discipline should be up to the teacher, and it should go to the administration as to what day it should be because of the spacing out issue, but I believe that the teachers should have a say in whether they get ASD or not, because most students do need ASD because they are very disrespectful, and I hear so many things in the hallways and in classrooms. It's awful.
What is, like, I think you said that they say they're not going to serve it anyway. If they would not serve detention, what is the penalty for that? I mean, honestly,
Saturday school.
I mean,
And
if
then,
they don't
and
come to Saturday
I'm just gonna
school,
tell
is
you,
it-
I
is
have
it-
not been made aware of any student that has not served. I mean, our parents are picking students up. Now, I will tell you, some kids are saying those things to teachers, saying, oh, it's nothing, we had fun, because they're just saying it. But I've walked in there in ASD, they're not having fun. But they're not going to admit they're having fun. But if specific teachers have instances, they need to come to me and let me know, and I can take care of specific instances. But if I'm not aware of it, I can't really speak to it if I'm not aware of it. But I've not been told that any student has refused. And if I'm wrong, then I'll find out about it.
Yeah, follow up with Ms.
I'll
Steinway.
follow up with Ms. Steinway because, did you have something to say?
Well,
Mr.
I just
Nichols.
kind of wanted to touch, I think, on what she was saying that really shocked me when I first started the school year was there is a threat assessment plan that the school has to do before they refer things to the sheriff's office. Certain things gets referred to the sheriff's office, but the school handles the discipline of it. School safety, obviously, we step in, sexual batteries, things like that, we would step in. But I will say this, that I agree with some of the things that she said about the kids kind of anymore are just totally disrespectful. I've seen it here, and the problem is, and I don't want to throw a caveat into it, but how do you teach a parent how to raise your child? When most of it is the parents, because I'm not saying who they are, but typically whoever is the child that's having trouble in the classroom is disrespectful, more than likely I've had contact with them in the public. Their parents. And their parents could care less either. You know what I'm... So I know for a fact that we've had more referrals this year because when I first took the school resource officer, I was like, holy crap. I was doing a case number. I think the first week I was 3 or 4 cases down. I would say Jesse can attest that since he's been here, he has been taking cases after case after case that gets assigned a sheriff's office case number. So I agree, but I don't know what the answer would be is my problem, because you can do whatever you want to them and discipline, kick somebody out, but at some point it affects the child because the parents could really care less. But I do know that she's right, that the kids are just, some of them are totally disrespectful.
The vandalizing, the vaping,
Oh,
that breaks more than school conduct.
Absolutely.
Charges were pressed and community service assigned, it might go a long way.
We have done that when we can find out who did it.
Did the vape
Because
sensors,
there are no cameras inside that bathroom,
Nor can you put them.
nor can I put them there. They were installed this week,
so the new vape sensors, it's got
Monday.
everything,
Yes.
I will say this, that I know for when I first started, the vape sensors in there, they was turn them off the wall. They was
Yeah.
turn them off. I mean, it's just, I agree.
And I will
wholeheartedly.
press charges if I can catch them.
And I think Ms. Warwick agrees. Also, I think that if you put the parents in front of the judge somewhere.
But
I'll
the
touch on
problem
something
is-
else
yeah,
too, though.
go ahead.
Let me tell you another thing. This is about the judicial system. The judicial system now is on a point scale. If you take a juvenile and they don't rack up enough points, I can't even get them into court. Denise Perry, which is a juvenile intake officer, can tell me I'm going to do diversion and there ain't nothing nobody can do about it.
And that is
And
happening.
they're going to write, I will never do this again, 500 times. And as long as she said that's fine, I ain't gonna
So we're not
high
getting the
horse system
support.
broke, but
Yeah,
she's
but
100% right, but I'm not saying that even if we charge,
that it's
even
gonna
if
happen.
we charge, that they'll even show up in court, that they even ever have to step foot in the courtroom. Because it's the judicial
They're
system
getting
in Virginia
diverted.
is set up that you don't charge a juvenile, period. That's how it's set up.
And there are new vape sensors, and they're highly sensitive, and they alert us on phones when when they're tampered with. The old ones did not have tamper alarms. These do.
Do we have cameras that can see the entryways to the bathrooms?
Are they all working?
As far as I know, Alex, I think they're working. The problem is sometimes, like before, the vape sensors wouldn't go off with tampering. There was no tamper alarm. So unless a kid reported it, we don't know when it happened. I mean, all I can do is all the kids that come in and out of the bathroom, we can try to interview them. Well, what are they going to say? I didn't do it. Was anybody in there? I didn't see them do it. So how do I charge if I don't know? Now, what we are doing now is we are having an assistant sitting outside of each bathroom, and they are signing, the kids go in and out. And that's what we're doing. We just opened up the high school bathrooms again. We've got someone assigned there, and it's a real shame that I have to pay someone to sit there and monitor a bathroom. But
It's cheaper to pay somebody to sit there than it is to repair the damage.
yeah, and the problem right now, and Mr. Gills can speak to this, they're in such bad shape, which you all saw when we did our walkthrough, you know, and that's the other thing. You know, we need to get new stalls, and we need to have them put in so that we can charge them if they tear a stall down. Right now, they're in such bad shape. You know,
how can you prove their damage?
Well, with the new sensors and stuff in, and it ensure that the cameras are working, what needs to be done in order to get the stalls and stuff fixed in the bathrooms?
I've got a quote, I had a company come out and look at it. They sent me a preliminary quote of about $27,000 to replace all of it. I asked him to break off the elementary, prioritize the high school, and the middle school in worse shape. So that was last week. I'm hoping to get some information pretty soon on what can be done. But the doors, like the locking mechanisms, they're in such, they're underburied. Like all we can do is put barrel latches on them now, and they'll get them off.
Is the stalls not something the maintenance here can install? I mean, because I'm sure the installation is a big part of the.
That was just for the material.
Is this for material?
That was just material.
You gotta build concrete stalls with metal doors.
And put a camera in.
we may, yeah, if we could. We are using eHall Pass, but I'm not sure. I don't know if all teachers are using eHall Pass, which is supposed to monitor the number of kids that are out and supposed to give us some sort of record of if we can narrow it down to a time of who we can see going in and out.
That's a question. If we don't know something, we need to find out. I mean, it's like for Miss Steinley or whoever, she's not giving an answer like to what Miss DePlaces was talking about on detention. I mean, we don't know an answer to it, but we need to find out from her, and if she's not doing
Oh, and I absolutely
what
will.
it needs to be.
Yeah, and I would definitely communicate that. I mean, the teachers just need to be able to give it. If you've got teachers that are giving it more than others, then the kids aren't going to act up in their class. You know, I mean, that's.
I don't have
If half the school is down here for ASD, I'll come down and help with it. I'd rather see half the school down here and get this crap fixed than keep hearing
And
this.
I agree with you. And we only have a select number of people that are willing to do it.
Yeah, that's like I said. I mean, I'll come down here for a couple hours if I have to. Whoever we can get down here to do it. But it's
Trace, I would join you. I would do that as well.
No, and I don't disagree either.
Yeah.
There's something that can be done because I've walked through multiple school districts going to basketball games and stuff, and their bathrooms ain't tore up like ours. So they have to be something that can be done. I mean, multiple school districts around us has bathrooms that you can walk in, the stall doors working.
Well, I think the bathroom's just a part of the larger disciplinary issue. I don't know, I think it's just a larger disrespect issue.
And I don't disagree with that. And the problem is the bathrooms have been in this bad shape since I got here.
Yeah, they haven't been updated.
I mean, they haven't been updated in forever. I mean, Denny tried to, that's why some of the doors are different colors, because he would get a door and would try to replace it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I'd like to ask Donna, that, could she explain a little bit more about the athletics over academics, not following the policy and the favoritism? What's going on with that?
Oh, it's just like athletics is definitely taking a priority this year. There's way more discussion about who the coaches are or what's going on with the coaches than what we're doing to fix our SOL stuff. It's a big thing. It's just an issue. So there's no discussion about, you know, who we're hiring to teach math next year or anything like that. It's always,
And can you tell me
Who's the coach?
discussion where? Like in your
Oh.
faculty meetings? Like where is this discussion not happening?
well, we find out stuff in the newspaper before we know anything that's actually supposed to go on. It's the complete, like, we're like, oh, okay.
Well, and I know there was something posted about baseball coaches in the Record, and none of that has gone to the board. What was put in there about Mr. Lucas being the assistant coach, that had not gone to the school board. So I'm just saying, I don't know who's communicating what, but that was news to me too when it was in the Record. And I was like, well, that hasn't even come before the board yet.
I think this issue brings back a lot of other things. A lot of our athletes are the ones who have a lot of disrespect. A lot of our athletes are the ones who are vaping and smoking. They're not kicked off teams.
You know,
And they're the role models for everybody else in the school.
So that's where you're saying that the policy is not being followed.
Absolutely. I think in our athletic handbook, it says if they're found with those things. If they're in trouble the day of the game, they are not to play. They have played this year. For whatever
But we
reason,
need to.
the policies are not being followed.
Well,
And when one student, I don't care what the situation is, and I know there are certain situations where, you know, grades, but if one thing happens, then the next person who comes along is going to demand the same treatment because, well, what happened with so-and-so? You can't do that to me. So
True.
the punishment has to be given. Just like in a court of law, you have to find them guilty. There has to be punishment. It has to be equitable. You can't have favoritism for an athlete against somebody who's not an athlete.
and that's something I will definitely follow up on with Ms. Hutton and Ms. Stomley.
With that being
Thank
said, I think with athletics, I think, you know, it needs to be a clear punishment. If they're disrespectful and get after school detention, they shouldn't be involved in athletics. And I mean, I've been at games down here, rec games, high school games or whatever, and seen unsportsmanlike conduct. If they're slapping the chairs and beating on the walls, they need to be off the team. And I know there's gonna be people that don't agree with that, but
And I don't have an issue with that.
if they're destroying school property, they shouldn't be on the team. I don't care how good they are.
They should be setting an example.
Right, yeah.
Well, no student should be, whether they're on an athletic team or not, no student should be at a game acting disrespectful,
Right.
whether you're on the team or whether you're not on the team.
Yes, ma'am.
So, I mean, my expectation is that students are treated fairly. But unless people let me know, I have charged my administrators. I'm not over here every single day. And if you have an issue, let me know and I will look into it. If you don't feel that any of my administrators are following the policy. Because
You
I'm,
don't know it unless you're told.
yeah, and I'm under the impression that, you know, what's being done is what's in that handbook. That if students are vaping, I don't care if you're on a team, I don't care where you are, you're gonna be punished.
When do we review the athletic handbook?
We'll do that, probably, I hope to get it done like by June,
Okay.
so that we can
What
get
would
it printed.
yeah. Maybe even something like, you know, after X number of ASDs, they get kicked off the team or something like that, you know, put some kind of limit on them to where after they've had too many disciplinary actions, You know, between maybe that, opening it up to if we give it to the teachers, I'd be liberal with it, hand them out like candy if you have to. I mean, we gotta do something.
I mean, comes a time and a place when you just if we don't have enough players to play basketball, tough luck. The kids are gonna,
Well, maybe
it's
they'll
gonna
hold
make
each
the kids
other
that wanna
accountable.
play.
Man. Yeah.
Like the other kids.
Rise and falls a team. I mean,
Mhm.
everybody's,
There are also counties who have snitch lines,
What's that?
Snitch
phone
on.
lines that you can call in and report who did something.
Like students.
Yes, or anybody, call it in.
Good idea.
And I've told a lot of different people, if they have a complaint, send a letter to the school board office without a return address or name on it, address it to Ms. Work, and she has it right there if you're scared of any intimidation or backlash, or send it to any of the school board members, and we'll give it to Ms. Work. That's what we're here for.
Well, and our policies clearly speak about retaliation, that actually you are more protected if you make a complaint than if you do it anonymously.
Yeah, there's a lot of legal protection.
There's a lot of legal protection if a complaint is valid, and the policy even says, if you're doing this out of malice or ill intent, that's different. But if you are and there are procedures in place to do that. And I have no problem if we want to do an athletic handbook and coaching committee. If there's a group of teachers that want to be on that, some students, I have no issue with that. But, I need to know if these things aren't happening, because when I tell my administrators this is what I expect, unless I hear differently, that's what I charge them with. The ASD, I'll definitely look into.
Yeah, I know we talked about that.
Because we talked about it, and I thought they were allowed to assign it, just not assign the day. But what I'm hearing is that may not be exactly what's happening. So I'll have to look into that. So would the board like me to get a committee?
Yes, I think it'd be a good idea.
So that
And
we
have
can get,
teachers and
Make some.
I'll
board
get
member involved in
teachers,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's more for information.
So which board member would like to serve?
I don't mind to
Okay. Is
help if we
that
can.
good? And then Randall, we'll have you on that as a student rep, is that okay? And then Mr. Places, would you
Absolutely.
be willing to do that? And then I will get, Mr. Places, you could be the high school rep.
Sure.
And then maybe I could get somebody in middle school, and then we'll get, somebody representing athletics.
Might not hurt to have an elementary point of view too.
I
That way,
think you're
Yeah, because
I would say that would take care of rec league.
Gotcha, that's a
And
good
plus, I
point.
think elementary school is one of the most important places, because you
And
teach
it's
respect in
starting young.
elementary,
And they know
it's
what
gonna
they
fall through in high school.
Mhm.
And if I would say something about like the sports programs, look at all your successful. No matter what your opinion of Duke basketball is, it's because of their discipline. If somebody gets in trouble, they're off the team. They know what to do. All your sports programs that are very successful are highly disciplined.
With the policy enforcement, Ms. Work, if you could, I would love to see more, I guess, checking into this policy enforcement, make sure a lot of these policies, it's like the discipline policies and stuff that's going on. If we're not disciplining kids for disrespect, they need to be some policy changes. If the policies are there, they need to be enforced.
Correct.
And all teachers need to be enforcing. If the kid's disrespectful, they need to be disciplined.
and I know it's difficult to try to teach something that should be taught at home. We might, look at some things that, I don't know, maybe some ways, think about some ways that we could maybe help promote it at home.
Well,
Disrespect's a big thing. If your kid's not disrespectful, at home, it's not disrespectful And if he's disrespectful at school, he's gonna, I mean, I'm sorry, Wednesday, he's gonna land up in jail. So you gotta respect authority. And if we don't learn to do that at a young age, I think it's great, especially starting at elementary and then all the way through. So that's, you know, good to be looking at all these things. And we gotta try to help teach the home. I mean, sorry,
Absolutely.
you know, it's just sort of a thing.
And Miss Snyder, I mean, I know, the principals are putting their data in our school, correct? They're supposed to be doing that. So I can run reports for you all to look at.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, reports are good, but they don't always tell the whole story either. I mean,
No, and I mean,
reports
and
can be
yes, absolutely.
doctored easily.
that's some of the like thought behind that community service requirement too. Is just getting the kids more in that civic mind, community mind. Hopefully, getting them some exposure to things that they don't have at home. I think so. I'm hoping maybe that'll help if that passes.
But we keep saying kids ain't taught respect at home. Well, I mean, it's kind of like when kids come to my house. I don't care what they do at home, but they're going to respect me when they're at my house. I mean, this ain't their house. They're going to respect the teachers and the faculty here. If they ain't,
Well, but I think the other thing that you have the luxury of doing at home is you say, don't you ever come back to my house. The school system, they listen to the parents say how bad of a job that they're doing, and that it was the faculty, it was the teacher's fault, the way that they taught them, that made their kid act the way that they acted. You know what I'm saying? They have to accept them, and they know that.
Don't correct my kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't you talk to my kid that way, I'll take care of it.
Right. Yeah, and the downside is most of the disciplinary actions we put out there are in the hopes that that just gets the parent to do something, right? So if you've got the parents that aren't doing anything, it's really hard. Suspension is just in the hopes that they'll get in trouble while they're at home for that time. And ASD, kind of inconvenience the parents and picking them up. Not that they want, students obviously don't want to be here either, but hopefully there's some inconvenience there that makes them be like, hey, I can't keep picking you up like this. We need, unfortunately, a lot of our disciplinary actions are tied to hoping the parents will do something. And if they don't, it's, but I agree, trying to push that out somehow. I don't know how you get that messaging out, but.
Mr. Bellis, I agree with what you said earlier, that hand ASD out like candy. They'll learn. They're being taught. We are supposed to teach them, and if they don't listen, then they have to suffer the hard way, athletic or not.
Yep.
Do you think, Mr. Playton, do you think that that's the biggest resistance to you being able to do your job is the lack of being able to discipline and seeing that punishment or
The
enforced?
uniform consequence is the biggest thing,
Okay.
which nobody understands why. It just is considered favoritism.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, they're favoritism.
like, if an athlete really wants to play in the game, then they should toe the line.
Yeah.
So, and if they don't, they shouldn't be able to whine about it for 5 minutes and get to play, because then it's no longer punishment if they got to play in the game.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, I think a revamp of the athletic handbook's a good
I
idea.
think, yeah. So we'll get a committee together. We'll get started on that right away and try to bring that sooner rather than later.
And I don't mind if, like, I don't know who's, you want to put chair of the committee, if it's Mr. Places or who, but, if they need to be a meeting or something once a month or whatever, I don't care to make a trip down here to support you all, because we need to get the school back under control with disrespect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're here to support the administrators and the teachers both.
Absolutely.
Anything else on that topic? Thank you, Mrs. Plains.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And we will move on to superintendent support report, the audit presentation.
And we have Mr. Scott Wickham here. Scott, thanks for hanging with us.
You want me to stand here or come up there or
Whatever you
Whatever
want to
you're
do.
comfortable
Okay.
with, Scott.
all right?
We're kind of in our little small classroom
Yes.
because our auditorium's being renovated.
That's
so.
what Heather was telling me. All right, and so normally I don't do an individual school board presentation for the school district audit, but I'm happy to kind of answer any questions you have, and I'll give a brief overview of the process a little bit, and talk about a couple of the numbers, and then take any questions that you have. Generally, the school board in Craig County, this situation, you are included in the county's audit report as well as part of that audit. Overall, that audit received an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, a good opinion. So that means the numbers presented in the report are materially accurate for the county as well as the school board as well. We implemented a new standard, GASB assessment for leases during this year, which requires some additional work and reporting copier leases throughout the school district as lease liabilities. The detail of this concept is very, very detailed. The school portion of the exhibits start on exhibit 26 on page 101. There's 3 separate funds reported: the operating fund, which is your main school fund, the school cafeteria fund, and then the activity fund. The activity fund are the funds held by the principals here at the schools, separate from the funds held by Heather at the school board office. So the 3 separate funds that can pull into that report. The school activity fund audit is conducted on a cash basis over the summer, and then adjusted for accruals to be included in this audit in the fall in that process. There's a lot of detail in here and a lot of numbers. Unfortunately, a lot of these funds revert back to the county at the end of the year on the accrual basis. So to give you an idea of how you are financially healthy is really more where the county is. And as I told them in their meeting in December, they're in good shape, a lot of good improvement in that regard. To that point, I do have some numbers in the handout. I'll give you this, or just passed out, but in this handout, I'll get it in just a second. The other part of this report, there is a finding in the very, very back of the report. A pretty common finding, and it does talk to the county and the school board as well. Just segregation of duties. Very small staffs have a hard time getting all the proper checks and balances in place. So the standards require a lot of checks, and they're not necessarily geared for small districts. So for a small school district, it's a very common finding to have a lack of segregation finding. The county also has a similar finding. So that's a common thing for most localities. All right, in the handout we passed out the thinner one. On page 1, I just have a couple rows of line of numbers there, and this entire handout was taken, a part of it, from the presentation I gave in December that did include the school's information as well. But I wanted to highlight a few items here. You can see the school board operating expenditures for a 10-year period there, and the overall growth rate of less than 1% per year. So that's a credit to you all for doing a good job of getting the best value and maintaining expenditures at a level. I don't think that will be able to continue with inflation where it is. So it's something to point out to you. And then you can see the county contribution. That number is a little bit different than what you see in your budget and your cash basis financials due to that reversion at the end of the year. So your 21 and 22 numbers both included a carryover. So I think you had a pretty sizable carryover at the end of 22 for your 23 year. But you can see that has declined during that 10-year trend. Some of that is related to the carryover. Some of that is related to additional federal funds that you all received in the last few years. So you all have received a lot of new CARES money, ARPA money, and all these ESSER funds and projects, and so the county hasn't had to give quite as much money for some of that. As you were discussing on your budget process, a lot of your funds are 60% state and 20% federal, and the rest is county or so. If you have additional federal funds, that locality portion can be a little bit less on some of those projects. So for the next year or two, you may have some more of that still happening. But I do think that similar to the ARA money back in 2008, there was a lot of funding then, and a few years later it dropped off a lot, and the localities were forced to fund a lot more, and I think school budgets got a lot tighter at that point too. So just remember to think about that as you get to that point, that you want to be funding things that are capital projects, and knowing that you don't want to fund temporary staff with temporary grant funding essentially. Also in this report are several other items, including a description of the net pension liability, which is recorded as a liability in your financial statements. That's on page 2. I always want to point out that this is a accounting liability, which sounds scary. It's not anything that you've done wrong. You all pay what VRS asks you to pay, your retirement. You all pay what they ask you to pay. It's just an actuarial liability that they hire an actuary to. What would it cost us if everyone retired with the current investment market? So a big estimate reported as a discount rate of 6.75%. You can see the difference there in the calculation. Also, some more information on upcoming standards. I mentioned this year we added GASB 7 for leases. There's a few more coming down the pipe in the next couple of years. As part of our testing, we're required to test VRS, the retirement system itself, for employees' birthdays and salaries and those good things. I'm on page 9 and 10 in the handout now. But that testing included both the county and the school board, and both received a clean report. We provide this to the state. They compile all of those from all the school districts and counties, and then they give an opinion on that based on the reports. So both the county and the school board had a clean report on our testing for that report. Page 11 and 12. I mentioned in the audit report we only had one finding. We also have some recommendations here. These items are non-compliance that may not be material to the audit, or could be best practice type items. You can see a few there. The only one that you already had for the school district is the conflict of interest form for the board statement, economic interest. And I don't know exactly right off what this is word for you all, but generally there's one page that has 3 questions on it. At the top of the page it says, do not complete the first 2 questions. And then there's a 3rd question. And that 3rd question gets skipped on a lot of forms. So that could easily have been what happened in this scenario. So just try to make sure that all of those questions are being answered and filled out appropriately. The last letter here talks about the process of the audit. The whole process went really well. We start in the spring, getting the audit going. May of June, we'll do some preliminary field work. A lot of items are sent to us electronically. Then we come on site and look at things, and then come back in the fall once you have your consultants or your pre-auditors prepare some information as well. And again, the entire staff worked really well on getting this information ahead of time and having it here for us. The process went well. Financially, things look good. That's pretty much all I had, and I was prepared to answer any questions you may.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My contact's on the front of the handout. If you have questions at a later point, just let me know.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you all.
Right, we'll move
Yes,
on.
please. Yes.
Yeah,
You can
feel
go.
free, yeah. Move on to 6.2 safety update.
Okay, and I've asked Officer Nichols and Deputy Nichols, Deputy Crowder to just kind of provide the board with an update of where we are with our safety planning.
A lot of, some of it, we can't talk about or anything like that, but I'd just like to say that we moved a long ways on some of the safety stuff that we did. We was gonna try, there's been exterior doors that's been replaced. We've been working on the interior stuff, the doors, been working with Miss Warwick, and I will say that every time that we even tell Miss Warwick about something we think is safety, she finds the money somewhere if we can prove the need. So we was going to try to set up an active shooter drill. We've talked about it. I just don't think that we're ready for an active shooter drill. We have 4 people trained now in the rescue squad. It's called Stop the Bleed. Which actually, Ms. Warwick has about 130 staff members that she's going to have trained in Stop the Bleed. So we haven't set up the training, until I think it was
Beginning of,
next,
yeah,
In-
the
in
fall.
August, when it's the teacher work week, where we have time for, professional development.
Because they only can do, each instructor can only do 6 people at a time. And we want to get every one of the staff through it. School bus drivers are included in that because we talked about that this training would be better for them to have, because we're more likely to have a bus accident that they could use the CPR, first aid, stop the bleed, than we would in anything else. But I think next year we'll probably be ready for some active shooter stuff, but we've got so much training, and we're just working on some logistics inside the building that's gonna help law enforcement, in case anything would happen. But you know, and I would say that I could talk about things probably behind a closed session, but I don't think open forums is the place to talk about our safety.
Very specific.
You know, but I would answer any questions that anybody had that we're trying to do.
Yeah, and just, March 2nd, the digital mapping, they're coming to do a walkthrough, to start getting that in place.
Yep, and Ms. Ward's giving Deputy Crowder full reins on what we're trying to do is renumber everything. We're gonna have signage put in, that helps law enforcement, just in the case of anything would happen. So we're gonna, that's the goal by March the 2nd. I think Deputy Crowder's deadline is what, set 27th?
Yeah.
To have everything done by, so everybody can review it and be ready to go for that.
And we're actually trying to go ahead and train, our bus drivers and car drivers. We have an early release day in March, and so we're trying to maybe get some of them to come in. Mr. Gills is required to have a training second semester. He has to do one first and second semester. So if we can get them to come in that morning, and then it's early release, and then we can give them lunch, and then they can do their routes and go ahead and get them trained in the first aid, CPR, and also during August, we're going to also train everybody in first aid, CPR, and AED. So that,
and it'll take,
we're
all that
prepared.
training is about, the logistics of it's with 130 people, and it's about 4 hours. It's about a 4-hour block for 6 people. So there's a lot of logistics we have to get ready to train for it.
Yeah.
And that's why we just didn't think, you know, an active shooter drill, we wasn't ready for that. Let's use, I mean, we've got plans in place for that, but let's do some of this stuff that really would help. You know, because if anything would happen, law enforcement, everybody knows we're very spread thin. Law enforcement's gonna have their own problems, so we're gonna turn to teachers and everything else to help with any kind of disaster, school bus accident or anything.
the rescue squad's working on trying to get some more stop the bleed instructors, because that is a big limitation, trying to get everybody through it.
There's 4 now, so it's only 24.
Yeah, exactly.
24 students for 4 hours.
Yeah, it's so we don't have enough as it is. It's me, Daryl, Amber, and Heather. Yeah, Daryl Humphreys, Amber Shred, and Heather Matheny. So we're trying to get a few more for that, because moving 24 people at a time through that isn't really gonna work. But yeah, there's a lot of logistics going into it.
When you got 130 people.
Yeah.
But anyway, to pull from any surrounding.
We've talked to like the instructor that came and did like the trainer with us. He said he would be willing to come help.
He's from John. He was from.
Yeah, he's from
New River Valley.
Yeah, he's from Radford. Yeah, Pulaski, Radford. Yeah. But he said he would be willing to come help with it if we needed him. And like I said, we're trying to get some more instructors on the rescue squad side to help with that. We've already got CPR and stuff. We've got a pretty good number of instructors. The stop the bleed stuff's fairly new.
And like Ms. Warwick was discussing with that is once you get this first one, you got 130 people. Well, then we start next year, split the group, and then every year there'll be training that she can do half of her staff, and we don't have to have so much.
Right.
But we've got to get
the
through
implementation.
this.
The first year is going to be a lot more training.
Yeah.
So I think we're.
But I think
moving
everything's,
along.
but I'm really pleased, and I will have to say that, you know, Deputy Crowder now, you know, the sheriff's pretty committed that he's gonna stay here all the time. And the only reason Deputy Crowder leaves now is we was fortunate enough to grab him back from Roanoke County, and he's still got some court he's gotta work his way
Oh.
through. But after that, once he's finished with all his court, he'll be here pretty much just, and this is his primary function. We've been very short here recently, and we still haven't pulled him. So everybody else is just doing it because everybody knows that this is the most important resource we have in the county is these students in this school. So, but it's just a matter of sometimes staffing.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, thank you all for all you do.
it's just a testament to Trevor and the sheriff's office in general and how
Absolutely.
committed they are to having Jesse down here. You guys know I dispatched up there, and that software that we use to put people on calls, you can't even put Jesse on a regular call. And I was like, because he went to help with something one day, I was like, why can't I put Jesse on this? They're like, well, Jesse's not supposed to be on calls. So
Yeah, he's committed totally 100% to the school.
Yeah,
And we actually this year, I have to say that we staffed all the ball games.
Yes, and
Yep.
so that's working
With
great.
assistance of you guys. So we staffed all the ball games. So we're planning on doing that. Even the other officers really enjoyed that because, you know, gives them time to just kind of meet and greet a little
Yeah.
bit.
Well, having that presence here at the school will help out some other issues too, you know. Just
I agree.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I do want to say that, you know, not every kid is bad.
That's right.
Oh, of course.
You know what I mean? But you take a teacher, Mr. Place's class, you have one kid and that disrupts for that whole,
Yes.
it's affected the whole class for that whole block. You know, so not every kid is bad. I think there's a lot of really good kids in this community.
Yes.
I didn't want to sound totally like I, you know.
No, we know what you mean. One person can disrupt the whole crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a ringleader.
Yeah. Well, if you guys don't have anything else for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
y'all, and thank you all for what you do.
Thank you.
Sometimes that's an overlooked position too, but it's very important. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can go. It's okay.
Move on to six. Move on to 6.3 comprehensive school improvement plan update.
Well, you know, you all approved these plans, and now the principals are just working through with the teachers to make sure that the objectives are being implemented. So that's just kind of an ongoing process at this point.
Any questions on that?
I did step in the auditorium and kind of peek around. It's looking better.
Yeah,
it's
it's
on
getting
See, they're
there.
getting chairs put in.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, move on to 6.4 facilities update.
And like Mr. Gilroy said, they're putting some chairs in there, and we're hoping in March that we'll be able to have our meeting in there, and that's really exciting. And this is just the timeline that we shared with you all last meeting, but I just wanted to put it on here too, just so that you're aware. I will tell you that in the gym, I've been working with Ms. Hutton because we're not going to be able to have those home fall sports games. So we're working with the other schools, and so we will have to have more away games, and then we will have to incur the cost of their officials for the ones that we would have normally paid the officials here at home. And so I'm working with Mr. Gills, because that's going to be, you know, with transportation, that's going to be more transportation for students. So we're already planning for that, because believe it or not, fall's going to be here before you know it. So we do realize that with the gym, that we've got to work on that to make sure students can go and participate in sports.
What's the plan for students just in PE class while the gym is not usable?
I know that, well, the gym is not closing until May 29th.
Right,
till
yeah, it just
after
means
school's
fall.
out,
Yeah,
and
for
that's
fall.
something we're probably gonna have to look at that auxiliary gym and kind of see what we can do with that. Hopefully we'll have enough good weather, they can spend some time
Both spend
outside
outside,
and,
hopefully, yeah.
and then also, the locker rooms, we're coming up with alternative locations for the kids to change. Once the locker rooms are closed, which will be here shortly.
Any questions on that? All right, 6.5 academic review update.
Yeah, we have scheduled our spring academic review for McCleary. As you know, McCleary's in red for science. The state will be holding a virtual meeting with the division team and with Ms. Stevens and her leadership team. And we'll just talk about the goals, objectives, and where we are. And then you'll get another report in April, I believe, is when our meeting is scheduled. The process is moving along, and the teachers are doing a great job over there with science.
Any questions on the academic review update? Let's move on to new business, March regular school board meeting. I will be out of town for our next meeting. I reached out to Darren to see about, make sure he was all right with running the meeting. There is a chance that he will be out of town as well. So I was going to see what you guys wanted to do. You guys would still have a quorum, 3 board members, and you would just have to, at the beginning of the meeting, elect a chairperson for that meeting if you guys wanted to, or we can push the meeting a week.
Push it a week.
Well, and my response when Trace asked me, I was like, if that gives Heather and I another week to
some
continue
budget
working
stuff.
on the budget and get closer to what it's actually going to look like, that would actually be helpful for our office, if that's not a problem with anybody.
Do we
I'll
have
make a motion to push it a week.
a motion to move the March 14th meeting to March 21st?
That is correct.
I second that motion.
All right. Ms. Belcher, will you pull the board?
Mr. Kevin O'Taser,
Yes.
Mr. Darren Drury,
Yes.
Mr. Walter Marston.
Yes.
Ms. Faye Powers,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Trace Belzak.
Yes. All right, that'll carry. So our next meeting will be March 21st. And we'll move on to unfinished business 8.1 community service hours requirement.
Excuse me, as you know, we discussed this at the last meeting, and at Mr. Belisai's request, I created kind of what this program might look like in Craig County, because what we had was from Florida, which has they actually have a lot of their community service hours tied to actual scholarships, correct, that the kids can do. So this is literally just a brochure describing what the program would look like and what the requirements would be. And so basically the proposal would be the 40 service learning hours required for graduation for a standard diploma, and then 80 for an advanced studies, and then 120 they would be recognized with like a silver cord at graduation. Randall's first task was to gain input from the student body, because this obviously is going to affect them. And obviously too, I put a note in here that, we would have to grandfather in, like it would start phase in, because obviously a senior next year can't earn.
Is it going to do 40?
Yes, so we would have to phase that in based on where they fall, or if they come in later and transfer in, we would have to make those. So if it's okay with the board, I'd like to let Randall share with us your thoughts.
Okay, so I made a Google form that I sent out to all grades in high school as to whether they would want community service starting their freshman year or not. And out of 93 responses, 88 said no, and 5 said yes. And if you look on your second sheet and the ones following it, there are responses as to why they said yes or no. and I can read a couple if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So one that said yes said encouraging students to learn stewardship will be a lifelong benefit. Another student said no, and they said I chose no because many of our CCHS students are involved in other activities such as FFA or even sporting events. These students will not all have the time to put in, will not have all the time to put into these activities. Therefore, if you have made it a requirement to get 40 hours of community service during high school years, many students will not be able to attend these activities due to other duties. Another student said yes, and they replied with, I will be graduating this year, but I think required community service hours should have been implemented a long time ago. Many students pass high school without trying to give anything back to their community. Another student said no, and their reason was for some students, it is already hard enough to graduate as it is, and graduation shouldn't be a burden, and I feel with adding more requirements to it, it can be on some individuals. Another said no, and their response was community service should not be required for graduation as there are barely any community service options in the county. School boards should not expect students to travel to other counties to accomplish this task and need to take into account the scarcity of any kind of options in Craig County. Another student said no, and their response was, as nice as it would be to have students participate in community service, it can be an issue for some students and may cause some to struggle to graduate or not graduate. A lot of students have jobs and or play sports, so it would be a big time factor as to how much they would be able to do and when. It is also a transportation issue for some, as underclassmen will not be able to drive themselves. One said no and said community service should be an optional thing for people to pursue as they wish, not a requirement to graduate. One said no and replied with, community service is important and should be strongly encouraged. Some students should be recognized for their community service, but for some students it is hard enough to reach graduation requirements. Some students will not have support at home to get them to and from service opportunities. There are other ways to encourage community service without making it a graduation requirement. Community service opportunities should be posted on a bulletin board outside the front office.
That's an idea.
Any questions?
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you for doing that survey.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Bids it pertains to that, you wanna read that one comment submission that applies with that?
Oh, the board comment.
Yeah, I mean, that way it's.
Yeah, concerns about the proposed addition of community service hours as a graduation requirement. I believe it is a noble recommendation that should be encouraged, but not required. Let's see, many students work after school to provide for themselves or their families. In addition, many of our students do not have their own transportation, sorry. Requiring volunteer hours is not attainable for all students, and to think that it could be a barrier to graduation is upsetting. Meeting minimum graduation requirements is difficult for some students as it is. As a school system, we need to do everything we can to help our students succeed, not place additional barriers. While I would like to see it, what I would like to propose is an alternative is encouraging volunteer hours and offering acknowledgement during the graduation ceremony. Some of it I can understand, don't necessarily agree with a lot of it. It's essentially 10 hours a year. I mean, people can find 10 hours a year not very difficult, in my opinion. I wouldn't think it would be too hard to find 10 hours a year out of your, how many, I don't know how many hours in a year, what's 365 times 24? Donna left.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, I really don't think that's a whole lot to be requiring of anybody 10 hours a year, but I understand some of the concerns as well.
I do too.
The transportation part, I think I can definitely understand.
Living in a small county, and a lot of families do just have one vehicle that they have to get back and forth to work. So I think it would be a big barrier for them.
Yeah,
but
transportation piece.
I agree with being able to, recognize them at graduation and say, so-and-so's completed so many hours community service, and if if there's something to do for their diploma, so it can
Absolutely.
travel with them to show that they put forth the effort.
Yeah, like they go for a job application, apply
For
for
a
jobs.
resume
you
that's
know.
on there.
And
And
like I
I-
said, I'm all for the, as far as having it, I think it's something big, with the requirement for graduation things, sort of, but I don't think it should be a requirement, they don't have a choice.
Yeah,
If you're
and-
thinking further, but just being in a small county where we are so spread out, that
Mhm.
it would be difficult for
Yeah,
some.
transportation, I think, would be the
Losing
biggest.
Blacksburg,
Yeah,
that would be awful.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't be
Yeah, and I know that the Beta Club, the Honor Society, they already have to do 20, is that right, Randall?
It should be
Is it a year or 20 during?
in the time we get into beta. So I just got in this semester, so I have to get 20 by the end of the semester.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Do you have to do that every year? Yes. That's what I thought. They do the honor roll, they do have to do that every year.
20 per
Hey,
year.
could we, I don't, just speaking of that, I don't know if it would work or not, but like coincide, we wanna put like a 40 hour to get get a recognition at graduation or whatever, we could coincide that 20 hours with the 40.
With
or
the
whatever.
beta requirement.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think if they're
I
already
mean-
doing that, that can
Yeah, what
absolutely,
was
and they have a cord for Beta.
Yeah, FFA also does community service hours to get higher degrees. So if that would be incorporated also into the recognition.
So I think Florida said a silver cord
Yeah,
Was that what
and I
it
think
said,
like
like
the
a
120
cord?
hours, I think, yeah.
when they got the 120 hours. But I agree that I think it's good to promote that.
I think one thing we need to look at too, since we are so spread out in this county, like, if someone was gonna do community service, they wanna say, yeah, I wanna be part of this and, I wanna give back. Like, say somebody's from Simmonsville, find something there as far as maybe with the fire department or something like that, so that it wouldn't have to necessarily be, but in that, in that district maybe they live in,
Yeah, that was kind of the idea, was to
Okay.
compile a list of places they could get it locally, maybe. Yeah.
So I guess what we would need from you all is what do you think would be, like, for the recognition piece, how many hours do you think?
I think what you've got in here for the recognition piece is good, like the 120 with the silver cord.
And then like your Beta, you're gonna be doing that almost, and your FFA.
Yeah. But my concern is, as a junior, how would I get 120 hours in?
Yeah, that
To
would
be
be,
able to-
we would
We'll
tier
have
that.
to
Yeah,
prorate that,
Yeah,
for lack of a
tier it
better
somehow,
word. We'll
yeah.
have to tier it. Because
So 120
obviously,
hours
yes,
divided by 4 years.
we're not
Yeah,
gonna,
so
yeah,
you-
you
That'd
can't
be
do
very
that, yes, it would be.
basically, if you're a junior, you're a junior this year, you would just have to be required basically to get 30 next year.
Which you're already
Okay.
probably even doing that between your FFA and your, and I do love the idea about the board, putting like a bulletin
Something up,
board
yeah.
or something up, so
As
that,
to the places you can go and do community
yeah, so
service.
that's something that, I think Mrs. Dowdy could actually put up in the hallway and talk to kids about that too.
But would you be able to give the kids that want to go transportation if they do not have it?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know if the school would,
That's
but I
the
bet you a lot of these places, like I know the rescue squad would, if somebody wanted to come volunteer down at the rescue squad, I guarantee you somebody would come over and pick them up. So I don't know if the school would, but I imagine a lot of the community places in the county that would be accepting volunteers would probably be willing to give them transportation.
Oh,
That
a lot
could be
of
something
churches
that's on the
do stuff
board.
for Christmas and stuff like that, that
Yeah.
could probably
Mhm.
need extra help, or Halloween when they do trunk or
Free
treat or whatever.
baskets or anything like that.
So I know the churches, I'm sure, would be happy to get extra help.
You
Yeah.
probably have to be careful with that though, as far as saying, somebody come pick them up.
Yeah.
That,
Right.
yeah, what I'm saying, just in the day we live in, you just gotta be some kind of.
Yeah, there was a concern in here as to the transportation issues, and they wouldn't want their child alone in the community without this. That was one of the responses.
And by not being a requirement, that gives them the leeway, the parents the leeway, if they don't want their kid
Yes.
belonging somewhere in the county, then that's their choice.
Do you need a motion from us just for the recognition piece then, since it won't be a requirement?
I think so, that way I know that I can move forward with.
So a motion for
To approve.
recognition,
Approve the learning program with recognition of, at graduation of completion?
Yeah, I guess
However you want it.
yeah, I guess a motion for recognition at graduation with the silver cord for 120 service hours.
Yeah.
Tiered in for you know.
And I guess
tiered
it
in
would be
for current
kind of
students.
just approving the whole program, because there is an application, you know, there is something where you take it to somebody if you're gonna help somebody on a farm.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so,
Yeah.
so there's some applications here, so if you approve the program, remove the
make
graduation
it a requirement,
requirement,
yeah,
and then make
I
it,
gotcha.
yeah, I think that way we can move forward with,
Yep.
the log that they turn in, and, you know, we could also provide some opportunities here at school, possibly, you know, if we wanna have a day where we, you know, pick up trash on the trail or something, you know, we could also do some things and possibly, you know, make some time during the day for some children, especially as spring's coming, and, you know, I know clubs right now, that's something I've talked to Ms. Steinley about, is we need to, next year, we need to get back to those club days. And so if we're having those club days during the day for high school, then they can also do something right here and not have to leave. You know, so there'll be some other opportunities, and I think if we know that there's going to be some restrictions, if we could come up with some ways for students to earn this during the school day, and I think we could certainly do that if we do clubs.
Wouldn't it be better to table it and get what exactly we want, because we got this thing, it's gonna have to be all changed around anyway.
We don't have to, it doesn't really need to be changed, we just won't make it a graduation requirement.
Well, you got 40-hour service required for standard diploma.
Yeah, that would all be pulled off, it would just
Yeah,
be
I
the
know, but
recognition piece.
I don't like something, I like to see it.
So
Where
I think we
when-
can approve it without, like I said, just removing the graduation requirement. It's
You can approve the program minus the graduation requirement.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
okay?
and
Then I can just
that would
delete
just pop off.
those.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the student service learning program, removing the requirement to graduate
Yes.
from the program,
Second,
making it optional.
I second.
Yes.
Ms. Belcher, will you pull the board?
Mr. Kavanaugh Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Gary Milbury,
Yes.
Mr. Walter Marston.
Yes.
Ms. Faye Powers,
Yes.
Mr. Trace Belton.
Yes. All right.
And I just want to, again, this shows kind of the power of having a student voice,
Yeah.
so that we can hear, you know, from our students when we're making decisions that affect them. Very nice job on your very first
Thank you for
project.
letting me let them know.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as a whole, or a motion to pull anything off?
I make a motion to approve the whole consent agenda as a whole.
Do we have a second?
You done show.
Function. Yeah. Let me show you that. Make sure. Mr. Martin cannot see that.
Kevin's ain't on there either for some reason.
Huh. We need to, yeah, let's make sure they're logged in, because I think you're only seeing the public side, which obviously personnel isn't able to see also. Here's-
I was talking to Dory about what qualifications you had to need substitute and all that stuff today. Really, it's none anymore.
You require a high school diploma.
Oh, that's what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yes, you do. Some other divisions require.
Yeah, well, see something about her this,
Where's she at?
that night.
You got it.
Oh, I know my password. Okay.
Then we would go into closed session, because some of these were added after,
Some coaches.
yeah.
For soccer.
Just for the
'cause I
personnel
was-
list?
Yeah, because I was asked some questions about it, but it wasn't on there, so I didn't.
Sure. Do we want to go ahead and make a motion to approve the consent agenda without the personnel list then?
Yes.
Second motion.
I didn't see it until now.
Ms. Belcher, will you pull the board? Oh, just kidding, sorry.
Sorry.
You're good. I didn't turn around and look, see what you were doing. Sorry about that.
Mr. Kevin Alhauser,
Yes.
Mr. Darren Newry,
Yes.
Mr. Walter Marston,
Yes.
Ms. Faith Powers,
Yes.
and Mr. Trace Phillips.
Yes. Did you get what the motion was for? Well, to approve the consent agenda without the personnel
Minus,
list.
yes, thank you.
All right, then, do we have a motion to go into closed session? It looks like the entire motion is not in board docs.
It's
Yeah, I know.
not, but all you have to do is add the ending.
To discuss personnel matters, basically?
Yes.
Okay. It's.
Under the recommended action,
Oh, after closed session.
and then just add to discuss personnel.
According to VA code 2.2-3711.a, motion will be made to go into closed session to, discuss personnel matters.
There, second.
Second.
Ms. Belcher?
Mr. Kevin Alhauser,
Yes.
Mr. Darren Newry,
Yes.
Mr. Walter Marston,
Yes.
Ms. Faith Powers,
Yes.
Mr. Trace Phillips.
Yes. Where are we going?
So
that to the best of each member's knowledge, that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Belcher?
Mr. Kevin Alshauser,
Yes.
Mr. Darren Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. Walter Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. Faye Powers,
Yes.
Mr. Trey Salzman.
Yes. Do we have a motion to approve the personnel list as presented?
Make a motion to approve the personnel list as listed.
I second that motion.
All right, thank you. Ms. Belcher?
Mr. Kevin Alshauser,
Yes.
Mr. Darren Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. Walter Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. Faye Powers,
Yes.
Mr. Trey Salzman.
Yes. All right, and we'll move on to comments and information. Hot topic conference coming up.
That is in Withville.
Yes.
And
March
so-
15th.
Yeah, and there are the topics, so if anyone's interested in going, let Jessica know. And the Blue Ridge Spring Regional Forum is there, and that is Thursday, May 4th, and it's in Henry County. So every year, well, I guess we're finally back to in-person. It's been virtual, and there'll be a dinner provided. I think they're actually having it at their career technical centers. I think their culinary students must be catering it. I think the cost is like $2 per person. Sometimes we've had more expensive dinners. And then we'll be taking our art submissions there, and that's where they judge the art for our region. So if you want to go, let Jessica know. Spouses are welcome. You're welcome to come if you want to ride to Henry County. And we just need to know, I don't know what the deadline is on that, Jessica. We'll check and see. I think they just need to know, obviously, how much food to prepare. Yeah. And then the last is the comment box. And we've already read the community service hours concern. There was a comment that said teachers at the high school need to stop giving students a 0 for work they missed while sick. This does nothing but create anxiety for us parents when we look on PowerSchool and makes the students feel like they are failing when that is not the case. If a student has not had a chance to turn in an assignment, it should be left ungraded until it's beyond a reasonable due date. The power trips need to stop.
Now, on that, I understand kind of a little bit of a situation like that, just due to the fact like we're back during COVID, my kids were out during COVID because they were forced to stay home because of exposure. Well, on all their assignments, it would show 0 that was done in class. It would show them having F's as a grade when they didn't really have F's as a grade. So I understand that. Is it any way to put like a due date in there instead of having a 0? I mean, I understand because a lot of parents get onto the kids for having 0s, and the kids stress out because it ain't their fault.
Right.
I don't think there's any, like the software won't.
No.
The software's not going to let you put a date in there.
But you can leave it ungraded, correct?
Our teacher lets you put a date in
For
when
where
the
the
assignment
grade
is due.
But it won't let you put it like in the grade.
Well, they won't put a grade until that date passes.
Yeah.
It won't count it towards your grade.
Can it be for individual
well,
students?
No.
That's
the
that's
whole
what I'm.
class.
Because
So
I know
that's why
if you're in class, the kids are, required to have it in that day, but if they're sick, normally they get like a 2 or 3 day
I was
extension.
going to say, I think it's within so many days that they have to turn it in. And then it goes to a 0.
Does PowerSchool automatically put 0s in for stuff that's past a deadline? Do you know?
I
Could
don't
even,
know about
I'm
that.
not sure, yeah. Could
I
even
just
be
know that I
automatic.
had the issue with, I understand that issue because of, it looks bad, your kid stresses out because he's showing an F she or he's showing an F in a class, when they really don't have an F in the class, it's just showing a 0 because their paper's not been graded yet with the other classes.
Yeah.
And it does, if the parents do care and look at their kids' grades, it does stress them out, so I understand that point.
Yeah, I think the
They
comment
can
was a little
exempt the one kid from the grade.
from
They can
the,
put an exempt in it, it won't count it, but you can't put a date specific to a child.
So they can put non-graded or something in there so that,
I think it's called exempt.
yeah.
Does
So
that-
the way the software works, if there's not anything entered by the date,
that's what I'm wondering if it
it goes
automatically
automatically to
puts a
zero.
zero.
It isn't so much the teachers are putting a zero in.
Well, and
just
it's,
the
you know, I
software.
could definitely see a lot of teachers, even if it's not automatic, putting it in as a placeholder, just being like,
Yeah.
well, you know, if the deadline's passed, I could see them, I don't think it's a power trip. I think that's a little bit of a
No, I
silly
don't, I
comment.
think it's a little
I
bit.
think that's just, you know, teachers, some
Yeah.
teachers may be
Yeah.
just tracking it differently, but if there's another option, it might be worth talking to.
I don't think it's a power trip by no means of the
Yeah.
teachers. I think it's
No.
probably just automatically put in there, but
I think it
I do.
does, like if it's the
If
deadline
that's the
and they
date,
don't do
it's a good
it.
chance it puts us up as.
Yeah, it might
When
do it
comes to the
automatically.
deadline, it will automatically put it in as a 0.
And I
then
do
the
see
teacher
where
has to
the-
go back and change it when the student gets the work done.
Gotcha.
Which is what that parent is talking about with seeing that 0. They don't understand how the grading system works, like how the computer updates things.
Yeah.
So I understand why they're upset, but they have to take into consideration the fact that that's just how the program works. It's not the teacher's fault.
Right.
The
It's not
teacher
the
will
teacher's
give
fault,
the
yeah.
student the work and they can get it completed and they will get the grade that they got on that paper.
But these days, it's the only way the parents have got to keep up. I mean, technology's kind of took over. That's the only way the parents have got to keep up with their kids, whether they're doing work or
Yeah.
not. Because I don't care how good your kid is, at 10, 11 years old, they're gonna lie and say they got their homework done some days when they don't.
Nuh-uh.
So,
Well, and I think that's part of it, maybe just making sure that we communicate to parents that it does populate
Yeah.
a 0, because I also don't want a parent to think if it's exempt, that their child doesn't have to do it.
Right.
Right.
When they see the 0, they're like, okay.
Right, exactly.
You
You
know,
can see the other side of that.
Randolph, you
Oh,
haven't turned
you were
these
exempted
in.
from that. or
So I
that.
think, you know,
if it shows a date when it was due, they know when their kid was at.
Yeah, that's,
Exactly,
you know, that
too.
theoretically should be the, you know, if you see a 0 but see, oh, well, it's late, and then it should click, oh, well, they were out.
yeah.
Are we still working on 2 different systems, PowerSchool and Google Classroom? Because I know that was a real headache where you had to try to keep up with both.
It does come from Canvas and then transfers to PowerSchool overnight, but Canvas can put in a not graded yet, but PowerSchool can't do that. So it's different on Canvas, but parents can only see PowerSchool, which is why they're only seeing
Canvas,
zeros.
Gotcha.
And PowerSchool's like the official record. That's our official transcript and our official records. And not all teachers are using Canvas, are they?
No,
No, I don't
but
think
if
so.
they
It's kind
do
of a
use
choice,
Canvas,
yes.
it will put it into PowerSchool overnight.
It syncs
So,
with it.
Syncs overnight, but
yeah.
Google Classroom does not.
Yeah, and I think most people are using Canvas, not Google.
Yeah.
Correct. And then, of course, there's a thank you, and I also want to thank you all and for participating in the Kindness Initiative. And it says a blessing to have a board that will use their time and their own money to help us spread some joy. And every staff member, every car driver, cafeteria, everybody got the candy grant. And people were real excited about that. So I appreciate you all participating in that.
Just a comment or question, I guess, on some of the sports stuff. I know some of the feedback that I had heard from some people was them not knowing whether or not they had been approved yet and
Yes.
stuff. Is there, I don't know what your thoughts are, what everybody's thoughts are on if we have somebody that ends up getting established, giving them like a multi-year contract for coaching. I don't know, you know, after maybe one or 2 years of a, you know, year by year basis to make sure it's going to work out, then maybe giving them a couple years, that way they know, okay, I'm at least the coach for the next few years. I don't have to worry about, you know, this or that.
I think it'd be a good idea, just for a simple fact, they can plan through the summer in order to have, whether it's open gym, because that's what a lot of other schools do. They do a multi-year
Yeah, do a lot of
contract.
stuff, yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
that way they can plan through the summer. Who wants to give up their summer vacation to come and do open gym or whatever and have basketball, and then the next
And
year
then
they
they're
hire
not the
somebody else
coach,
as a
yeah.
different coach.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it kind of gives a little bit more stability, and I think it'll help us retain our
Just-
coaches that we, I mean,
Yeah.
good retainable coaches.
Yeah, just, retention wise and just the stability piece I think would be good, not everybody wondering, oh, well, I haven't been approved as the coach yet. Is it okay if I start working with the kids or, well, not technically because I'm not the coach yet. And, so if we've got, maybe after.
When would you like those?
I guess the beginning of the school year maybe, or before that even, I guess.
Or maybe
probably before.
April?
Yeah.
The regular contracts.
Because if they're,
Could we not just do like a continuing contract like we do a lot with the teachers, like say, hey, if you're still willing to coach like in April or whenever you put out the letter of intent or whatever y'all do, whatever it's called, could we not do that with the coaches? And if they're willing to step up and they have all year to kind of assist and help the kids through.
Is that
I mean, we can do that.
something we can do? Okay. And then what I'm
I
thinking
know
of,
in previous years, I mean, there have been years when they approved the coaches at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, that's why I know we did that up until fairly recently, I think.
Yeah, but some of the sports start right before the school year starts. So.
Yeah, exactly.
and I guess maybe if we can do it in April, then that way they can plan for summer camps.
Yeah.
Because I know there's a lot of summer, like Jeff used to take them to the volleyball camp at Rennet College every year. So we can certainly have that list in April.
I don't know at what point we give like teachers a multi-year contract. I know it's kind of similar. We
3
do.
years.
Okay, so maybe even something similar where we do 2 or 3 years, just an
years
annual
time
contract to make sure.
And make sure.
We
Yeah.
still do the contract every year, but it's, once they hit 3 years, then it's a continuing contract.
For teachers.
You still.
Gotcha.
We had the same coaches for like 20 and 30 years.
So certainly that's something we most definitely could do. So I'll plan on bringing a complete list in April.
When does the letter, I was asked that, when does the letter of intents and stuff go out for the teachers and stuff here?
It's already gone out.
It has already gone out now?
Before Christmas.
We put them out in December. But we don't send those to coaches.
Okay.
So maybe just basically looping in coaches on that process, maybe.
Well, the problem is the coaches, a lot of them aren't staff here. So their school email, which is where they get the.
Oh, where they get the
you know
letters
what
and
I'm
stuff.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we can do that, but yes, somebody's gonna have to notify them because they're not checking their email
Right.
to see.
So we can.
But yeah,
We
they can
can
be notified.
work
I mean,
through
a
that.
lot of times, like if they don't sign their contract, Carrie will call them. I mean, Carrie can notify the coaches and say, hey, and ship letters.
Well, and we can even make like a mailing list with their personal emails if we have to. If they're not using school emails, we can even just make a mailing list of the coach's personal emails and loop that
And
in.
they do have a school email.
Oh, okay.
They have
They
a
just
school
don't use
email,
it
they
that
just
much.
don't write.
Where
Because
they
they're just
tell us, do you
coaches,
want
so,
to
you know,
return?
they're
Are you
not.
gonna
They're not checking it.
retire?
But if they know
And
they're
then,
doing
Like
it,
my
I
daughter
mean,
said,
we
I
can
had
do
no
that.
idea what I'm
Yeah.
gonna be doing.
Yeah.
That's too early.
It's not a commitment on their
Yeah.
part. It's not a commitment until they sign their contract. And we can't put out contracts until the budget is approved.
Until everything's approved.
Yeah, but at least that gives us an idea if somebody's like, hey, I want to retire. And there's also a place that's like, I want to come back, but I'd like to consider this different position for next year. So if people
Right, they can make comments.
comments
about
like,
what
oh,
they-
I think I might like to change grade levels at the elementary school. So that helps us to see, are there any, anybody that might want to do something different. So,
Okay.
and they know we're not holding them to anything, but it just helps us in planning. Like usually if people will tell us, yes, I'm gonna retire, then we know to start
Right, then we
looking
know.
for that.
Right, yeah.
But of course,
Makes
until they
sense.
sign their paperwork, they still may choose not to retire. So it really is just trying to help us kind of get an idea. So.
Snapshot.
Exactly.
And I'd had a call also about, did we have a school bus in the budget for this past year? Or this year, I guess?
No.
Not this year.
Do you know if we're gonna be able to, we'll probably be able to put one in for next year?
We don't know.
I know we'd always
Oh,
talked that we'd like to put one in for every year. So.
Well, usually if, like when we get that that forest money,
Right.
but I'm gonna be honest, the fire marshal has hit us with so many repairs that we talked about, the sprinkler systems.
He's leaving. Just drag your feet.
Drag your feet.
He's retiring.
But no, I
But
was just
so-
asking about the school bus, cause I mean, Craig County, the county roads and stuff, we put a beacon on school buses. And
And
Is
so
this
we'll
the-
kind of know as we get closer as to what any fund balance we may have. I know Mr. Gills has requested
If we
in
can
his
do it,
budget
yeah.
request.
If we can do it
And
as
we
a
always
priority,
try
I'd
to,
like to
I
see
mean,
it.
that's always in our mind, that if we get that money and if we can, we will, but this year, we really don't know yet. I mean,
Property
we've got
taxes are going up about
new
20%.
versions of last year's budget have come out that are a lot different than what we approved, so there's gonna be a lot of.
But that's always been a priority, that if we
It's
can, we
always a
try to
priority,
buy a
right, we
bus.
always, if possible.
I think it's been, when's the last time we did get one?
Last year, right?
Last year, it was the small
Right.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I was gonna say, okay.
before that.
One, a bigger bus.
I mean, we generally never get.
That's
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
all
Get
we can
one,
get.
that's a good year.
How are we set for buses? I mean, is it, I mean, I know we need new ones, but are the ones holding up still?
I mean, we've got a fairly new, I
We-
mean, we've got a newer fleet.
Probably 5 of them are in really good shape. We've got a couple that are showing their age. I would love to have one,
Right.
but
But we got enough to sustain our routes and stuff with that.
We do, right.
We have a backup bus in case we go down.
we're hurting more now for cars. We have
Yes.
more cars going in places
The
than
buses.
we have.
Well, and that might be easier to do this year, obviously, than a bus too.
And I know Shane is keeping his eye out.
Yeah,
But
there's
the
just-
cars, you can't, the market right now, people, you can't find used
And
cars.
you can't even buy a new sedan.
It's, yeah.
Chevrolet is the only manufacturer
That's even
that
making it.
offers a sedan.
Yeah, they're all crossovers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all hybrids or SUVs or whatever. There's not a full-size sedan anymore.
Yeah.
So we'll have to look into that when the old Crown Vics finally do give up the ghost of what we're gonna do. Because they're in worse shape than our buses are.
So we'll definitely put that down under priorities. Just- and
I
we-
mean, if we need to get a
can.
car instead of a bus, it's fine. It's just, it's always a concern for our kids to make sure the safety and stuff for the kids
Absolutely.
are.
Yeah.
You don't want 15, 20 kids sitting out on a bus broke down somewhere.
No, sir.
The only other thing I had was, there was some concerns about the cleaning crews. I've heard a few people say that, the rooms still ain't getting cleaned like they should.
So I heard one complaint about the rooms not getting cleaned. I talked to their supervisors, and they have handled it
Okay.
on that side, and I've been watching them this past week, and from what I can tell, they're doing what they're supposed to do.
I've heard mostly positive about the
Yeah.
cleaning crews.
Well, I mean, I heard some positives too, but I mean, if we're paying them, we need to make sure they're getting all the rooms clean.
Right, and I've been watching them every day.
Shane and the supervisor actually came and looked at some camera footage and took care of some things that
Okay.
were
Good deal.
were being
Not
bypassed a little bit.
Little change.
So, and
And one of the things was they were not wearing their shirts.
Mm.
And I told them that they needed to have their company name on there because we have a lot of parents in here and
Everybody knows everybody's.
they
They're
need to
not
be,
like
yeah.
that.
So Shane is,
Right.
Shane
what I'm
and,
getting at, and it would probably stress out a lot of parents if they seen them not wearing a company logo, just wandering around in schools.
And they're in here after hours, right? They're not here
But
while.
there's also parents in here
Right, yeah.
all times of the evening, so.
but Shane's worked really well with their supervisor of the company, and he addresses it the minute something, Shane calls him, he drives over here and they look at the cameras.
Really out of Roanoke or something?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the only other question I had is that.
I talked a while back, like when I first got on the board, and then COVID happened and everything went out the window, about going and doing a field trip to VTech. Like,
Mhm.
I wanted to, and we've got a lot of other new board members too.
Okay, I can,
So-
we had talked about that, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what, was there some changes about B-Tech or something that they was gonna be changing for our school? Maybe some scheduling changing that was gonna be hard for our kids or something to get to?
Well, when we were looking at going to periods instead of blocks, I think that was gonna be
Okay.
hard on our end, but then we kind of, I think
Okay.
we've decided on sticking with block instead of
Okay.
periods.
I'm glad we stuck with blocks, because I'd go to VTech and it would have been very difficult.
So, if you all, I mean, is there any certain days or that are better for you guys, or do you want me to just get a few dates and y'all can decide?
Yeah, good few days, we'll see.
I'll reach out to,
That'd be great.
the principal over there and we'll take a field trip. Field trip.
Sounds good.
I always like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a field trip would be nice because when my first day over there, I didn't know where I was going. So the
Okay.
kids that had been there previously had to tell me where to go.
Yeah.
I was thinking back on, cause I know there was something about it, but I think it was the welding program at B-Tech was, kids here is having a problem getting into the welding program at B-Tech cause it's full up.
Basically, it's highly competitive. And once you're in welding 1, the kids that go on to welding 2 have the highest GPAs.
You have to be top of the class.
Top of the class, and they don't differentiate, because they said, once our kids are there, they are Craig students. And that has changed, because I know we had some issues at one point where they were giving top priority to their kids, and then our kids wouldn't be part of it.
Mhm.
But their administration changed and said, that's not right. You know, once they're our kids, when they come to us, they're our kids, and they're gonna be in there equally. It doesn't matter, it's the whole class, no matter whether you're a Botetourt student or a Craig student, and the very top kids get it.
Yeah, the
So
teachers
it
at
gets-
B-Tech.
It goes by grade
It does,
or whatever.
it does, it goes by
Average.
grade.
That's what
Now,
all
the
of
only
that-
way they get priority is getting into the class in the first place. So LB and I don't remember the-
River.
James River get first priority as to whether they want to be in the class or not, and then Craig gets the leftover
We get the
spots.
spots.
So
But
like for nursing, James River and LB got the first pick of how many people they wanted in there, and then we got the leftover amount of people that could be in there.
And
What happens if, there's none left for our kids, like in the nursing?
well,
Do they have a allotted amount of spots for Craig County?
It just wouldn't be available.
Then
Yeah, I
I
don't
guess
think-
it wouldn't be available.
Yeah, I
I
don't
think that's
think
how it
there's
works with
any stage.
veterinary.
But we haven't, I mean, you know, to my knowledge, most of our kids are getting in.
There should be 5 spots in nursing
Yeah.
for next semester.
Yeah, and then, but it's the second, and like you cannot go to the next one
Well, see, I
if you're
was,
not top.
I was under the understanding that there was no spots like in the welding program for welding 1. They wasn't, enough spots for even very many kids from Craig to go to. So.
I think it just depends on, I mean, they do serve their students first.
Yeah, it's possible that it's not as many as we would like. I could definitely believe
And
that.
we don't
It's
know
just not
from
as
year
many
to year
spots.
until,
they figure out how many. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I mean that's understandable.
And that's
It's-
where you
if we
do
were
the
doing that
ACM.
program, we would
Yeah,
probably
they take care of our
have it the same way if it was our program. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, they're looking out for the, they're helping us out by us having kids over there. So I get it as much as it sucks. No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think all our kids this year were able to get in where they wanted to, or they gave them an alternate. Like, this isn't available, but would you like something else? So I believe when I talked to Ms. Simon about scheduling, all our kids got a slot, either their first pick or second pick, so they kinda got to pick. Sorry, Trace, I did not.
No, you're good. No. Do the students go over there to like do a field trip before they?
yeah, we've done the field trip, yes. I think so. Did you do a field trip
I didn't
over?
get to.
You didn't get to, okay. Because I know we're doing a field trip to Gov School
Mm-hmm.
for that, and then I'm pretty sure they planned a field trip for what, 10th graders? Judge being 10th, right?
Yes, to
Yeah,
start
10th.
some of them.
Yeah, start, that's
but
what I thought.
some of the
yeah.
other ones, like you can start welding and cosmetology in 10th grade, but nursing you can start in your junior year. So you can start some, but you can't start some.
think that's, the last Gov School meeting, we're probably gonna end up raising tuition. Gov School is in probably a little bit worse spot than we are right now. They're pulling a lot of money out of carryover to balance our budget over there. So it's not a lot. It's gonna go up from like 4,700 to about 5,000 a student. It's not gonna have a huge impact on our budget because we're not sending a ton of kids over there. But I just wanna let you guys know, that was really the only big thing that came out of our last meeting.
So do we pick up the governor's school tuition, is that what we do? Or?
Yeah.
It's just a certain, what is it, like a grade point average or something gets in there?
They have to apply.
Yeah.
And an essay, they have to do an essay, and in a lot of school divisions, it's very competitive, and not all their kids get a spot. For us, we typically sometimes have trouble filling the spots that we have, because it's a very, very intense, hard program, and some of our kids just aren't interested. So, but we are going to do a field trip over there to try to gauge some more interest so that they can see what's involved. I think at one point we had 5 slots, and they used to charge us whether we used them or not, and then we negotiated where they just charge us based on the number of kids that want to go. So right now we have 3 kids.
Yeah, because my opinion, if one of our kids don't want to go, then we'll go to allow another one from somewhere else to go and pick up tuition.
And they do, yeah.
Yeah, then we have
absolutely do.
Gov School has a cap, and you know, they go back and forth with the different divisions on each year who's going to have how many, and if a division needs more slots or less slots, and yeah, they whittle that out. It's a program that's definitely near and dear to me. We don't send a ton of students, but it is, because it is, success rate isn't necessarily very high. It's a very rigorous program.
And we actually had a first place winner, which we're going to invite Tyler Van Dyke to come to a
One
future
first place
meeting.
in the
One first
science
place.
fair.
Yeah,
Their
and so
equivalent of science fair anyway.
yeah, so he, I'm going to have him come and present to us. He presented last year, but he's going to present our project. And if you follow the high school Facebook page, I know Mrs. Dowdy's been putting up student spotlights to try to recognize children that are artists. And there's one on Tyler, and we all went over there and visited and practiced his little karate things that he did. And it's pretty good. So.
Anybody have anything else? All right, then we're adjourned.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Faye.
Thank you.
I hate it.
Guys.